Hello, my name is Evelina, and today I'm going to present a few locations from the war in the Pacific. So, I'm going to start with the fall of Singapore, which happened between the 8th and 15th of February 1942. And Singapore had been a British colony since the 19th century until February 1942, when the Japanese decided to annex it. On the 8th of February, 5,000 Japanese troops landed on Singapore Island where they started spreading pro-Japanese propaganda, and by February 13 they destroyed the main defensive weapons of the Singaporeans. The tactics of the British were very poor, and Singapore was surrendered to Japan. The importance of this event are the consequences because thousands of soldiers were taken prisoners, and with the fall of Singapore, the British lost their secure position in the east. So, the first picture I'm showing is how British soldiers surrendered to Japan. The second picture is the first page of the British newspaper Daily Mirror. And the third picture is again the loss of Singapore. So, the second event I'm going to talk about is the Battle of Java Sea, which was a naval battle between the Japanese forces and the Allied forces from the US, Australia, the Netherlands, and Britain. Indonesia was desired by the Japanese because of its oil field, so they decided to take over, and the Battle of Java Sea began on the 27th of February 1942. This battle was won by the Japanese, but it created more tension between the Allied forces and Japan, and the two forces fought again in the Battle of Sunda Strait a few days later. Then began the Japanese land attack on Java Island. This was significant because it was part of the Japanese plan for control over the Dutch East Indies, and it gave Japan the island of Java and control over Indonesia. So, the first picture I have provided is a picture of the battle itself. The next picture is the equipment of the Allied forces and their ships, and the third picture is a Japanese heavy cruiser. The next event I'm going to talk about is the Battle of Bataan and the Death March that followed after it. On the 7th of January 1942, Japanese troops reached the Bataan Peninsula and began their offensive. Filipino and American troops were able to hold them for 3 months, and this battle was marked as the most intense from the Japanese invasion of the Philippines during World War II. The battle was very important because by that time Japan controlled the whole southeast region of Asia except the Bataan Peninsula and the island of Corregidor. The defensive forces held the Japanese for months, losing their valuable time and preventing them from having immediate victory across the Pacific region. Consequently, the American Filipino forces had to surrender to Japan on the 9th of February 1942. Altogether, 76,000 soldiers surrendered, which marked this as the largest surrender in American and Filipino history. The same day, these prisoners were forced on the Bataan Death March, where they were physically abused, tortured, and killed, and had to walk around 112 kilometers north to Camp O'Donnell. So the first picture I have provided is a Type 93 flamethrower in action during the Battle of Bataan, which is a weapon used in the battle. And the second picture I have provided is the surrender, and the third picture is how the Bataan Death March looks like. So the next event I'm going to talk about is the Battle of Manila. In December 1941, the Japanese attacked the Philippine Islands. General Douglas MacArthur was the leader of the US forces there, but the Americans were not prepared for a Japanese attack, so he declared Manila an open city on the 23rd of December. On the next day, around 7,000 Japanese troops marched towards Manila. As an open city, Manila fell quickly, and the Japanese took the naval bases at Manila Bay. MacArthur fled to Australia, but he vowed to return to the Philippines because he took this loss personally. Around 3 years later, on the 3rd of February 1945, Japanese troops started terrorizing the people in the Philippines' capital. The actions of the Japanese were extremely brutal, and the result of them were 100,000 casualties. On the 4th of March, when Manila was officially liberated, but the city was absolutely destroyed, starting from the number of casualties to the ruined buildings and architectural and cultural monuments. The battle was significant not only because of its brutal consequences, also because it gave Japan a strategic location in the southeast region of Asia and also control over the Philippines. So, the first picture I have provided is the aftermath of the battle. The second picture is how life after the battle looked like. And the third picture is a a view from above of Manila, which is destroyed. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the Japanese invasion of the Philippines. The Philippine Islands were a strategic location between Japan and the South Pacific, and they were on American territory since 1898 because of the Treaty of Paris. On December 8, 1941, the Japanese forces arrived and struck the airfield at Iba, which is right here. The same day, an attack was carried out in the southeast at Del Carmen airfield, which is right here. The Japanese had more modern equipment, which made the Filipino and American forces less resistant to their attacks. Also, the Japanese forces had more air superiority. On the 20th of December, the Japanese forces invaded more airfields and key strategic positions at Mindanao, which is right here, then Luzon, which is right here, and then Davao. Then the Philippines' President Mario L. Quezon asked President Roosevelt to grant the independence of the Philippines so the islands can announce their neutrality, but his request was declined. These events started the 3-year Japanese occupation of the Philippines, which ended with the Battle of Manila in 1945. This event was significant because it gave the Japanese a strategic location, which then resulted in Japanese control over Indonesia and other parts of Southeast Asia and drove US forces away for a while. So the first picture I have put here shows how American propaganda looked like. The second picture is of General Douglas MacArthur, who is returning to the Philippines in 1944. And the third picture shows the American soldiers in the Philippines. So thank you for the attention, and I hope you understood my part of the presentation.